Hi, this is Maisie.
And this is Sean, and this is our Rude Awakening. Hey, friend.
Hey, girl, how you doing?
Oh, good. It's a Friday,
Oh, nice.
so
Yes.
I'm happy about that. It's been a long week. How about you? How are you?
I am doing all right. And thank you for asking. I appreciate that because let me segue about what I wanted to talk to you about. Oh, one thing that I've learned working in the podcast, Our Rude Awakening with you, that I appreciate is just how important it is to interact with people. And admittedly, you're like one of the first people that I've really talked to, like spoken to this week. But it's one of the reasons why on lots of our platforms, we have come join the conversation. Like that was one of the first things that we put up there because it's not just about speaking to people, which it's so easy to do. Well, for some people, not for me, and I don't think for Sean, unless it's with our jobs. But it's really important to just listen to people. So when you ask me how I'm doing, I want to actually think about that. And I don't know if you remember one of our first episodes that we did was about actually listening when you ask a question and actually thinking about it and saying how you feel or saying what you're thinking when people do ask. So, to go on, one of the things that I realized because it is Black History Month as of this recording, I was thinking about how I sort of take for granted what I know and think that other people know it too. And I had a family member come to me and she was asking me if I was aware that Africans sold other Africans into slavery. And I mean, I was familiar with that, but it was just sort of like one small piece of the puzzle. I was like, yeah. But it wasn't that important to me. I just saw the issue of the American slavery as something that was bigger than the fact that maybe some Africans traded or, enslaved, sent others Africans into the American slave trade. But instead of me taking that for granted, she was genuinely asking me. So I wanted to do some digging. And actually, Sean, I learned a lot more that it's a lot more nuanced, a lot more complicated. And I think it's important for us to talk about it because this is a talking point that you hear a lot as an excuse for slavery. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's often used in arguments about the lasting impacts of slavery to deflect and try to somehow give heavy meaning to the fact that Africans may have participated in the start of the slave trade as an excuse. It's sort of like a you guys did it to yourselves, so stop blaming us for it kind of context.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of use of it is relying on a myth, almost like Africans sold their own people and slavery was common everywhere. So nobody today really bears responsibility for that.
Right.
And the reality is, yes, slavery did exist everywhere. However, the chattel slavery system that came through the Middle Passage only existed here in the United States and in the Caribbean. And that slavery was a systematic trade of humans that were used as property, and it was hereditary down through their family line. It wasn't sort of you're working to pay off of a debt and so you're working for free until that debt is recovered and it's limited to you. It passed down for generations and generations, and Africans can't bear the weight of responsibility for that entire system.
You're absolutely right. And I think another thing to remember is even with slavery and go back to biblical times and probably even before then, a lot of that had to do with territory in different tribes. You think about Greece and Rome and even France, so, these countries are, what we think of as modern day countries. It was about land, it was about power, and if you did take over, if you did conquer land and conquer people, those people were generally slaves. But like you said, Sean, it wasn't something that was passed through your line. And even more so with the Americas is that it was based on, what they determined to be race as well. So it wasn't just taking these Africans, it was because of who you are. Almost no matter where you go, you are going to be considered a slave. Now, of course, there were some free Black people in America already, but in terms of these Africans, you are a slave. And one of the things I think it's important for people to think about is Portugal was one of the first slave trading countries. There's even written documentation when they first came to Africa. And we have to remember it's a continent. It's a lot of different diverse people, a lot of different tribes, and now a lot of different countries. So it's not just one group of people. So even saying Africans sold other Africans, that's a big generalization. But there's even when Portugal came, I believe it was like in the 1400s,
Mhm.
they there's documentation of them forcibly taking people. And
Right,
then
right,
yeah, and then in the 1500s and 1600s, that still was occurring. One of the things that Europeans did bring, which again brings up that complexity, is they brought over weaponry.
right, and I would say, along with that weaponry also came violence and raids and kidnappings and establishing forts and collecting captives of the areas that they took over. So again, this idea that African sale sale of other Africans was sort of at the forefront of the start of the slave trade is just not accurate.
Right.
It started with uses of force, coming into an area, kidnapping civilians, attacking villages, and forcibly enslaving people. And so you had different tribes who, in an attempt to avoid that, were being pressured or coerced or used strategically to fight against other tribes and then try to avoid conquering or capture. And in the midst of that, were also oppressed and conquered themselves. And so, in order to protect their tribe, they were willing to sell other captives or their own to protect the larger tribe. So, it was a decision, not one that we're necessarily proud to embrace, but the idea, like I said before, is used to deflect and say, "Hey, you guys did this," but it ignores a lot of what was going on. Like you said, there's different tribes, different ethnic groups. It's not that we're acting as a monolith and Africa is all one big country. We're dealing with different tribes, different territories, different parts of West Africa.
Mhm.
It would be just like saying, prisoners of war, areas that were conquered in Europe, people who were used for bartering, that is, the sale of another European by a European, or the trading of another European for another European. There was active war and colonialization going on at that time, and
Mhm.
people were kind of coerced into this system. But the way that it's used lends itself to the idea that we're kind of responsible for the start of the system and fostering the system by trading our own people, and that's just not accurate.
Right, it's not, and again, you have these kings and queens and these people trying to protect their own people. It's almost like a hostage situation or a catch-22. So if
Mhm.
they are coming with goods and weapons, I could see how some tribes wanted to trade with them because it gives you a leg up. And then because of that, other tribes need to have that same kind of force for their own protection, and then they trade. But the part that we're not realizing is if you did not want to do that, you did not have an option. It was to conquer or be conquered. And to your point, Sean, there's something that you mentioned. Eventually, they were all conquered. they could only do so much to protect their people. And when you think about colonialism, how all these European countries inhabited a lot of Africa. And there's still a few places where, you have territories, and in more recent memory, them actually these countries or these European countries leaving. But, I just thought about it. The British Empire, you know what I mean? Like, and
Mhm.
also in the Caribbean, they still have territories. We have territories. So, again, if somebody is telling you that, oh, well, African sold, like we just said, there's so much more to it. And at the end of the day, they were left with no choice. They were already being conquered. And again, I'm just speaking generally. They were already being conquered, and those that tried to work with Europeans were eventually conquered as well. So uh, there's a lot more to it, and it still doesn't take away from the fact slavery in the Americas was unique because it was based on your bloodline. It was a hereditary, passed on enslavement that you couldn't get away from. For the most part, you cannot get away from it. And that's what made it different than slavery or enslaved people from other regions throughout time.
Right, and to put a button on it, the reality is European powers that colonialized various areas and still do in some cases, designed, financed, and enforced the slave trade. It was their forts, their ships,
Yeah.
their raids. They are central to the process. The fact that you had some Africans who, as we said, we're talking distinct tribes, distinct countries, not, we're all one monolith and this one king of the everyman tribe sold a segment of people into chattel slavery.
No, you're right.
This was war, this was colonialization, this was self-preservation. Um, and sometimes decisions are made that are regrettable, but necessary for the larger preservation
And at the end of the
of
day,
of your people.
yeah, it was oppression and violence. So,
Exactly.
you know, um, I think that and most of the time, and I'm going off a little bit on a tangent, Sean, but when you think about even Columbus or when these explorers came to, new land,
Mhm.
usually, not always, but usually the people there tried to work with them. And at the end of the day, they were all taken advantage of and taken over. So that did not change ultimately in Africa in the African slave trade. They
Right.
were taken advantage of and taken over eventually. It might have taken some longer than others, but it's like dealing with you're held hostage. And this is just me speaking from my viewpoint from, many centuries later, but there's only your choices are limited. So at the end of the day, the culpability and the onus was on those that chose to take the enslaved and keep them enslaved and use their progeny, their children, and keep them enslaved. But I think it's important, aside from that fact, how much importance you want to put on that. We can't deny the fact that there was slavery, and I'm just going to focus on the United States, and I will call it America. But we can't deny the fact that for hundreds of years we had slavery in America. And I find it interesting, Sean, that even more so now that they're trying to sort of sanitize it. Have you noticed that?
That's a gentle way of putting it. I just saw a news story the other day that they completely there's a memorial. I've been to George Washington's house, and I guess this is the first presidential home, Mount Vernon. And there was a memorial to the 9 slaves that worked there and served the president and his family, and that was recently taken down. There's in Baltimore, I saw um, there was a site that talks about slavery and the Underground Railroad, and the plaques were taken off of the exhibit. There's little monuments throughout the country that you'll see, historical markers of places where there were significant moments in Black history that are all throughout the country, and the site itself is gone, but there's a little marker to say, this happened here. Those are being taken down en masse. And so it is it is, yes, it's sanitizing, but it is full scale. Let's wash it away while our president stands on stage and tries to celebrate Black History Month with a straight face
Mhm.
while you're at the same time giving orders to wipe it away
Yeah,
as if it didn't happen, you
and
know?
I think that you're right, sanitizing is a very nice, proper way, of
It's a proper word. I mean,
yeah,
it is
of saying it, but
the cleansing of history, our history from American history, which our history is American history. I
right,
hate that
right,
we call it that we distinguish it and make it separate, but
yeah. Well,
it is a big part of American history, so you're just essentially washing us out of the laundry, so to speak.
it's you're right, it is intertwined, and whatever the foundation of, Declaration of Independence and the the colonies, there a large part of our history is intertwined with the enslaved people from Africa, the building up of the economies, the building up of New York, like the actual building of these places, these historical places, the White House, like you said, George Washington, what we have given in terms of things in America, in the United States that we take for granted, what people have innovated, what they've invented. And I think that erasure is even more so. The sanitization, I could see there's a lot of people who are saying it wasn't that bad. In Florida, they even besides getting rid of, African American history as a course for high school students, they even try to say that, "Oh, well, they did learn, slavery wasn't so bad for people because they learned trades that they were able to use."
Mm.
And they tried to actually make it so, oh, once, slavery was over, they could use those trades, like, as a thank you, or some people have said, "Well, the US is pretty nice place. Would you have rather have been, do you wanna live in Africa?" And, of course, Africa is always just this one place, like, we should be grateful for where we are, but as I've always said, Black people in the United States are some of the most patriotic people in terms of regardless of where we played a part in the beginning of this country, we have been the main drivers, and I will say that, to push America to live up to its promise for freedom and the pursuit of happiness, justice for all, even though I think is that Superman? Is that DC? Freedom and justice for all. But it's like, we have with the Civil Rights Bill, that opened the doors for so many other minorities. We have been the forefront of having the Constitution, the preamble literally means something. So I hate the fact that, and I'm going to say this just because of what I've seen, like you were talking about them trying to get rid of the impact of slavery or the fact that it was even there.
Okay.
And one of the craziest things that I saw recently, Sean, is for those who are not aware, Medgar Evers is he's an icon in civil rights. And he was murdered in his driveway
Mhm.
by a man who was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Now, the plaque for Medgar says that the man, his murderer, and I have to laugh because it just doesn't make any sense. They said his murderer was a racist, and this Trump administration removed the word racist.
And girl, he would probably roll in his grave because he was a loud and proud racist, even though he initially denied the murder because obviously he didn't want to go to jail. But he was a very loud and proud racist member of the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, often engaged in racist activities, was on the news saying racist things,
If
spewing hatred, and to move that off of the sign as if somehow that makes it better. "Oh, it's just a killing now." You know?
It doesn't make any
It's
sense.
ridiculous. It's
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous.
and it's a fact, and if you feel the term white supremacist or racist is overused, it's not in the case of the Ku Klux Klan. It is
Right. It
absolutely
means
not,
a thing. Words mean things. It means a thing.
and he would have agreed. He would have
He would have
agreed that that's
agreed,
what
exactly.
he was, and the fact that that's not sanitizing, that's erasure, and what is the point? There's something deeper there, and it reminds me, Sean, of even now when we have our vice president, because I have to say, I have to use that term because it's true, and that's what he is, and that makes it even more concerning. When we have our vice president, JD Vance, telling a group of people, "You no longer have to be ashamed of being white."
Mm.
Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Or apologize, what
Yeah,
tells a
yeah, I
group of
think it's
people that you no longer have to apologize for being white.
mhm.
What is that?
Right. As if they were apologizing anyway.
And I think
It ties back to the thing with, Black history education is making our kids feel bad about themselves.
right.
But it's been proven, we talked about this on the podcast before, with case studies in Germany, where they do teach the history of the Holocaust and Hitler, and they go to the Holocaust Museum and they go to concentration camp sites. They feel it's important to teach that history so that things can be healed and history doesn't repeat itself. People can know the signs and know what led up to it and know what happened to honor the people who were victims of a tyrant. And here, we like to brush it under the rug, and it's done in a way that's sort of like, you need to get over it, and so we don't wanna have to confront it. We much rather pretend that it didn't happen and that it hasn't shaped large ways about the way that this society functions. It's the same as conversations denying systemic racism and institutionalized racism. It is all a part of that kind of pretending that it didn't happen and that it hasn't benefited a group of people and it hasn't harmed a group of people and continues to harm a group of people.
Right, it's
Yeah.
about keeping that leverage, it's about keeping that power,
Mhm.
and them saying that it absolves them of any kind of culpability and any kind of responsibility. So it boggled my mind when they were saying, we don't want to teach anything that's going to make white kids feel bad about themselves, even though reality in life, you're going to
Mhm.
feel bad. Reality in life has its ups and downs, and there's things that we're responsible for that we have to deal with the consequences. And it's not about sanitizing or it's not about history being great and okay. There are the oppressed and the oppressors. That's just life. That's just history. And to your point about with Germany, it's not about having this eternal guilt, but it's about understanding how we got here and making sure we don't do it again and fixing some of those wrongs. We don't want kids to feel bad about what happened in the past, but we want them to understand it and to understand how we got here and why we're here today. And it's all connected. And to try to whitewash that literally, it's so disappointing and it's dangerous. And I think it's about just recently minority births outnumbered white births,
Mhm.
about keeping power and saying that everything that you do, no DEI, there was no discrimination. We're not at fault. Anything that happens to you or has happened to you was all your responsibility. We didn't do anything wrong. Everything that we do is based on our own merit. And because, in lots of people's cases, because they think that they're better.
Right, and I mean, it shifts, and it's a political shift, but it happens in personal lives too. But I think that kind of remarketing is dangerous because it shifts the conversation away from accountability,
Mhm.
and it starts to make it into something about personal guilt and comfort and not having to face things that are uncomfortable. And that kind of collapsing of the conversation from something to talk about how we can make things better in
Right.
this country and moving it over into talking about why do I have to feel guilty for something that generations before me did and my family didn't own slaves and that kind of thing. It's just politically convenient because it gets you as a leader out of talking about reparations and out of talking about legislation that could help counter some of the effects of racism and slavery and Jim Crow and redlining and all these things that had such a huge impact on the Black community. It gets you away from having to deal with those
Mhm.
things because now you've made it all about discomfort and personal feelings and not cultivating empathy within people.
Mhm.
And that's part of it. That would be nice, but that's not what this is about. This is about accountability and taking ownership for what happened. And even if it wasn't your generations of family back, you've benefited in some way. And
Yeah.
so, writing the system to balance it because you know it's the right thing. You're shifting it away from that in order to make it a personal thing so you don't have to deal with it.
Right. Yeah. And it's about improving our country, again, living up to what we said our promise was and ensuring that people have a level playing field about equity, you know, and not necessarily, I would even say like equality, because we're not all the same, but we need to all be able to start and to have the same doors open for us. And that benefits all of us. But when you are able to separate different groups, which is what this is doing, and alienate people, make people feel less than, make them feel that their part and their contribution to America isn't important,
Mhm.
that is a problem.
Yeah,
And it's like I said, it's dangerous because when you don't honor, try to acknowledge, take accountability and fix the past, it's going to happen. Or,
exactly.
what has happened in the past, it's going to happen again.
Exactly.
And I would even argue, Sean, that it is happening.
It is. And ignoring it or trying to recast it, I didn't get a chance to inject earlier, but when you were talking through some of the changes, like with um, curriculum and sanitizing history and things like that, and trying to cast it in a way that we picked up skills and we benefited by learning skills. I know you were talking about the Florida curriculum, but ideas like that are BS. That's gonna be my kind way of saying it. But also that too is a reversal of the truth because the work that happened on plantations often came because Africans came with skills that were able to make plantations thrive.
Mhm.
And so our knowledge of the proper way to grow crops, let's say rice, for instance, has f- fueled huge parts of the economy in that time. And so that agricultural knowledge that we had benefited them, not gave skills to us that we benefited from, and now we should be thankful for that. They should be thankful for the way that we built full economies with skills that we brought with us from Africa. It's a full recasting, and the idea that I've heard it broken down into ways of like, it was an immigration type program.
Oh,
It
you
was
wanna
an
go back there.
apprenticeship because you learned a skill. That's all just how many ways can we create BS to make this sound like our ancestors didn't do anything bad?
Mm, right, and I
It's all of it
yeah,
is a turn away from accountability.
and to prop
But
yourself up.
also to deny the contributions that were made. It's still being cast in a way of look what we did for you. instead of accepting the contributions that we've made and making it right,
Mhm.
you know, or
Right.
at least telling it correctly. Shit, if you're not going to give reparations, at least tell the truth. I just it's a it's a it's a hard pill to swallow, the many ways in which we try to run away from the truth of things.
Right, and you have to, just like with therapy, you have to face yourself before you can do the work and improve yourself.
Yeah.
I think just the honesty is
Are we
it's
not tired?
yeah,
I'm tired. I
yeah,
just are we not tired of finding new ways to lie about
yeah,
history?
and I mean, honesty is so good because look, I mean, honesty is so good unless, I'm 10 years old and I've taken something
Mm,
from the store that I did not pay for, but,
mhm.
generally, it's important because we can look at the progress that we've made,
Yeah,
and I'm sick
and
of people acting like,
everybody knows it happened, so
well,
all over the world, so
the
let's
problem
stop.
is younger generations, will they
Yeah,
be
they haven't
told
learned
these
it yet.
things? And if they don't know where to look, there's so many people even now, and even in our generation, Sean, they didn't know about, the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre. There's so
Oh,
many
yeah,
things that we're not taught,
yeah,
and the fact that it's going to get worse, but I think it also goes back to that whole supremacy thing. Lily White, and when I say Lily White, I mean, you haven't done anything wrong. Your record is
mhm,
clean. But
mhm,
if we can embrace the fact that we're an imperfect nation and that we were built on the backs our prosperity was built on the backs of slaves,
mhm,
and that we have not completely or we still have a lot to go in terms of righting that wrong,
mhm,
but we can also look at how far we've come. And based on how far we've come, we can see where we need to go. But if you don't even acknowledge that, and if you literally try to erase the fact that somebody was racist, I don't know what to say. I don't know what to tell you. I One thing I can tell the people though, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, but one thing I can tell you is that because of an uproar, they did have to put that back. And I guess that's at the lesson at the end of the day, right, Sean? We have to tell people, talk to people about this, communicate, and then we have to say something. I mean, I guess, the people have to say something. We have to push back.
right, and as our leaders walk away from accountability, we have even more of a obligation, I would say, to teach our own children about their history and to hold people accountable by sharing history with those who are inclined to listen. And it goes back to the point of the podcast, not only this episode, but in general, it's our own obligation to research and look for the truth. And I understand that the more things are sort of sanitized, that it can be harder to find the truth. It can be harder to find history as it's being deleted all across the country. But it's important to talk to family. It's important to preserve those stories and tell future generations because we have to do it ourselves, just like we've had to do many things ourselves. And so it's even more important to preserve it in any way that we can and teach it as well.
And that's one of the things, the main drivers for us. We want to help spread the word. And like I mentioned at the top of the episode, we're listening. We want to communicate with you. We want to have the conversations with you. We want to hear where you're coming from, the things that you've thought about, that you've wondered about. And we will continue to do those deep dives and to point you in the right direction or what we feel is a direction where you can get kind of the facts. Let us know what you think about this episode. Definitely make sure that you contact us. Let us know if you've learned something, if you have more questions, if there's something else that you've thought of, because I don't want to take things for granted that, oh, it doesn't matter or most people know this, because I learned a lot in this episode. And or preparing for this episode, and it goes so much more, it's no black and white, so to speak, and there's so much more that we have to learn, and I guess when you open your eyes, you open your mind.
And you should do both before you open your mouth. If you want to weigh in on this conversation or others, you can find us on social media on Instagram and Threads at Rude Awakening Pod and on Blue Sky at ourrudeawakening.bsky.social.
Yeah, and our website, she already said that, but, I mean, we do have a contact us form for that too, and always in the comments. So, Sean, this was
You
a
coming
lot.
with the yeah, I was gonna say you coming with the heavy conversations on a Friday. You told me you had an episode, and I was like, "Okay, let's talk about it." I did know, in fairness, I did know what we were getting into, but we kind of as we dug down into it, it got heavier and heavier and heavier, and of course, we end on the note of, "History's being erased.
Yes.
Light the fire. Let's go march."
Yeah,
But
your
but
voice
it's
matters.
it does, and it's gonna matter at the polls in November, and I know I'm way out ahead of it, but listen, it's never too early.
Oh, primaries. Primaries are going on.
That's right, primaries are
Yeah,
going on now.
yeah,
So,
and lots of eyes are watching Texas.
yep, mine included.
Yeah, we'll definitely be posting about that on our social media. So,
Stay engaged. No
yeah.
matter how you engage or who you engage with, we're not telling you how to vote, but I'm judging you. No,
Yeah,
but seriously,
yeah.
participation's important no matter
It
who you're
is.
voting for. It's important that you pay attention to the issues and do your own research. Don't listen to the sound bites. Listen to what you've looked up, what you pay attention to, and check your sources. Sometimes we can get caught in an algorithm or a vacuum and only hear the echo of our own thoughts.
Mhm,
So get outside of your comfort zone, look at other things, make well considered decisions.
mhm.
Analyze people. Analyze, don't just listen to talking
And,
heads.
sometimes when people show you who they are the first time,
Mm,
believe them, believe them. So, and I'm talking about those who were surprised by President Trump.
mm,
I heard what he had to say, and I believed him. In full transparency, that's why I did not vote for him. But, yeah, the parties are different people. We'll be getting into that later on in the year, but, uh, your voice matters, and we're stronger together, so
mhm.
let's not erase history, let's not sanitize it, and I guess that's it. Have a great weekend, friend.
You too.
Yeah,
Go research
happy
something.
Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month. A happy 100th year of Black History
Oh,
Month. Yes.
and it's the 250th year of what, like, Declaration of Independence or something?
Yeah.
You know
I
what, I
mean,
think.
you know me, I say we've been making history since the beginning of time.
Yeah, yeah,
But
you know
the
what?
month,
That's
the
true.
celebration of Black history as a concept. Before we end the episode, we would be remiss if we did not take a moment to honor the life of Reverend Jesse Jackson, who passed away on February 17th of this year. Jesse Jackson is obviously well known for his work in civil rights. Many of you may have heard of his work through the Rainbow Coalition and his work across the country and also internationally for equal rights for all people. Reverend Jackson once said that America is like a quilt, many patches, many colors, many sizes, all woven together by a common thread. For us, that quote captures the heart of his life's work. While he rose from and spoke powerfully out of the Black civil rights struggle, Reverend Jackson never framed justice as something that was meant only for one group. He believed that civil rights were human rights, that dignity, opportunity, and fairness belong to all people, regardless of race, faith, gender, or background. His vision wasn't about assimilation or erasing differences, but unity, recognizing that America is strongest when every patch in the quilt is valued and stitched into the whole. He fought not just for a seat at the table, but for a bigger table where everyone could belong. We wish Reverend Jackson's family peace as they process the loss of this giant. And we here celebrate his life and legacy and want to say, rest in peace, rest in power. It's well deserved.
Ready on the start? Okay, here we go. I am somebody. I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody. I may be young, but I am somebody. I may be on welfare, but I am somebody. I may be small, but I am somebody. I may make a mistake, but I am somebody. My clothes are different. My face is different. My hair is different. But I am somebody. I am black, brown, white. I speak a different language, but I must be respected, protected, never rejected. I am God's child. I am somebody. Give yourself a big hand.